and welcome to Camp Scary and Squee, a podcast that tests my theory that every horror movie exists on a scale of divine camp to pure terror. I'm your host Damien, and my guest today describes her perfect horror movie as something that gets the heart racing, gives us a complex villain, and has at least one good belly laugh. Welcome, Emma. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So before we get started on this week's movie, I'm very interested to know what's been haunting you this week.
Yesterday, the Woolworths food delivery person said, "You have a nice kitchen," and I thought he said, "You have a nice weekend," and responded with, "You too."
Oh no!
That might haunt me for the rest of my life, just this week.
You can never get groceries ever again.
No, I will starve now.
So this week, do you want to reveal what we are reviewing?
Dun, da, da. It is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the film, not to be confused with the long-running series of the same name.
Very exciting. And some stats on this. So Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie or the film, was released in 1992. It's written by Joss Whedon, who we all know from the series, and directed by Fran Kuzui, starring Christy Swanson, Donald Sutherland, Paul Rubens, Rutger Hauer, and Luke Perry. Who is a bit dreamy.
A bit dreamy, but also I'm not really sure how he thought he could play someone in their teens or early 20s when he's clearly 47 years old.
Yeah, no, he hung on to those roles for a little too long.
Sure, I think there's some notable absences from your starring.
I know, there are.
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck is in this. Ricky Lake is in this.
Okay, I knew Hilary Swank was in this, but I missed Ricky Lake.
Ricky Lake's the waitress.
Are you serious? And obviously David Arquette, who is a redeeming feature of this film.
And most importantly, the IMDb description describes Buffy the Vampire Slayer. A flighty teenage girl, Buffy Summers learns that she is her generation's destined battler of vampires. Does that capture it for you?
It sort of does.
Why do you feel like not enough?
Flaky. When I was doing a little bit of extra research, because I loved this movie as a kid, and I was doing a bit of extra research into it, and I also saw the word vacuous thrown around, which I think possibly is a better choice than flashy.
It is a the entire film is a masterclass in kind of that 90s teenage, I don't give a shit about you kind of voice.
Yeah, definitely. The way that they speak, I know it's only from the early 90s, but it's literally like being transported back into a different time. The dialogue is very interesting.
Well, it's like, what is it, 1992? So it's nearly 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a while ago.
It was.
It's only a little bit younger than us.
Only a little bit, actually. I was thinking about that when I was trying to work out when I first watched this film, because I think it might have been 1992.
Really?
So I would have been, I think 4.
Oh, your parents were, way less strict than mine.
It is so weird because I was not allowed to watch The Simpsons or Jerry Springer, but my mum and my sisters are significantly older than me, so I think there's a lot of media I was introduced to, possibly a little younger than I should have been. But everyone loved horror films, so I just feel like that was always something that was playing in the background in my house.
Do you think that's had a big influence on your relationship with horror, that you grew up in a house that loved it?
Definitely. Well, my dad doesn't love it, just my mum and one of my older sisters. But it was always de-stress and unwind was to watch a horror movie, which I think is quite odd, maybe for many.
I don't know. I don't know if I find them relaxing, but I find horror films this great escape, and you sort of see into a different world and you yell at the TV a bit because everyone's an idiot. It's something I do to unwind. Yeah,
there's a real sort of ritual to horror in our family, which sounds like a horror movie, actually, now that I'm saying it out loud.
Ritual horror in our family.
Yeah, all of the virgin sacrifices that we used to do on the weekends. Watching a horror film together was just something that we did. And then when the credits rolled, because this was back in the time of VHS, someone would race off, so there was only one person left in the room, turn all the lights off and then hide somewhere to give the person that was remaining that had to sort of like rewind the movie and lock the door to give them a fright.
It reeks of a family that loves a horror film. But we should get to the reason we're here today with Buffy. I want to talk a bit about the film. To get us started, I think it has a really great opening scene. I don't know, I'm personally very fond of it.
I don't want to throw the word iconic around, but if I was going to say something was iconic, it would be that opening scene.
So to give everyone a sense of what it is, we open on high school basketball cheerleading.
Yes.
I would say they might have practiced for a day to get this routine down.
It doesn't really align with the current concept of cheerleading as being a legitimate athletic pursuit.
No, this was mostly shaking pom-poms, shimmying.
So much shimmying.
So much shimmying. It just goes on and on and on. And, you know, everyone was really into it. I thought that, you know, they gave it a red hot go. But so in this scene, we kind of get a sense of the school. I still am not sure why they made this choice, but there's this coach who's like really new age and is like,
I love him. I know when he's like, you are a complete person. You have a right to this ball. I was like, yeah, he's got a point.
I was watching just going, what's the angle here? Who thought this was, what are they trying to achieve? But I guess
certainly belongs more in a sort of a noughties horror film, doesn't he, as opposed to an early 90s.
Yeah, I guess. Are they trying to say that the school's really supportive and everyone's really happy? I don't know.
It's weird, isn't it? Because the whole scene's set up to, like, glorify sport and identify the popular kids and how they are separate from the rest of everybody. So he doesn't really align with that.
No. But I guess Buffy is front and center, Chrissy Swanson, and we can see that she's the most popular of the popular kids.
And the blondest.
The blondest, very important in the 90s apparently. And it's quite short-lived, and we head straight to the shopping mall to like get that more depth to their character. We're sort of seeing how she interacts with her friends. I have so many things written down in my notes that were just things that they said. Like most of my notes is just inverted commas and like what they said.
Me too. Me too. Seriously.
I had no sense of history. He wears a brown tie. That they're going to the movies and the way they select. They don't even have Dolby. I was not a teenager in the 90s, but was Dolby something you aspired to when you went to the movies?
That is such a good point, I guess. So what is it, surround? I think it means surround sounds, does it? As opposed to a single centralized speaker.
I've never thought about it.
It's because we are products of incredible privilege and great audio.
But possibly the greatest... Well, look, I can't even remember where they decide to go, but once they've decided where they're going to go see a movie, they say, sounds toasty.
I know.
The whole
I
thing,
think that because I feel like for a long time in different scenarios in my adult life, I've been saying toaster caked him in celebration of doing something, and I still don't know what the toaster and being toasty has to do with anything. One of the mysteries.
This movie is full of mysteries when it comes to what they say. And I guess this whole scene exists just to get us to the point of there's a run-in with Merrick, who anyone who's watched like the Buffy series knows about Giles, the Watcher, this incredible relationship. Merrick is the Watcher played by Donald Sutherland. Like, there's big hitting actors in this movie.
Yeah, I think that maybe a significant portion of the film's overall production budget went to netting Donald Sutherland as an actor. I was also reading that he would rewrite the lines. So given that he was a big name, took some liberties in terms of production and would rewrite his lines the day before, which led to some creative conflict between him and Joss Whedon, the writer of the story, which I thought was really interesting. I was like, ooh.
So Joss Whedon left that set, didn't he?
Yeah, he stormed off. He left the set.
In future interviews, he talks about how he didn't like the direction it went. He thought they were making it Lionsgate, the company, were making it too kind of lightweight, and they didn't get his dark humor, and they didn't want it to be as dark a film as it was as he wanted it to be, and that there's this whole thing that like the series is kind of him taking control back from that.
Because the series is very divorced from the film. And it doesn't surprise me in the slightest to learn that there were creative differences, because sort of the wit and grit of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the series, is largely missing from the film, where it's comedy, even when it's unintentional, because it's just really, really poor production, and bubblegum and pretty light dialogue.
It's not like, I don't think it's scary at any point.
I was thinking about this because I do remember feeling frissons of fear as a young girl watching the film, and I was trying to pinpoint it because it's not. You're right, it's not a scary film, and I wonder if it was the abandoned carnival type scene that resonated with me. I still find that idea of like abandoned places where kids typically play that take on a very dark and menacing mood at night when, you know, the sunlight's gone. I still find that a bit scary.
Yeah, so if we get back to where we were, she's just seen Donald Sutherland, dramatic eye contact.
Yeah,
Clearly
I have an issue with Donald Sutherland's casting as well, because I feel like Giles gives off fatherly, protective watcher vibes, and Donald Sutherland literally looks like a creep and someone that you would avoid late at night.
Yes, he really does. I guess it's all for like the exposition of setting up every character in this, because like the very next scene is to sort of introduce the other two big characters, which are, they're at the movies and they're talking all the way through it because they're vapid and 90s and
inconsiderate
and wealthy. Like, it's all gets established that they're wealthy and they're sort of growing up in this world of great privilege. And we meet Pike and Benny. So Pike is Luke Perry, Benny, David Arquette. There's nothing really of note here except that we meet them and there's a little bit of a confrontation, I guess, to develop the tension of the show, of the movie.
Yeah, I think also the fact that they allude to the fact that they're stoned, because these aren't the athletes, they're not the popular kids, they're, hey, I'm part of a subculture where I get stoned and go to the movies and don't pay for my ticket. I'm so edgy.
I mean, that was the 90s. We get to... So look, we've set up all of that, and the last thing we have to set up is what the big bad is. It's a horror film. And we get that when we do go to the carousel. So is it abandoned or is it just nighttime?
I think it's nighttime.
Okay.
I don't know. There's a lot about the main villain that doesn't make sense for me in this film.
Yeah.
Including the carousel.
I think the vampires live in that park, which makes me think it's abandoned.
Yeah.
But there's some guy who decides to, like, cut through it. Meanwhile, every close-up, he has the weirdest shaped mouth I've ever seen. He just keeps sort of doing this duck face thing. It's like he's already got the vampire teeth prosthetic in, and he's, like, trying to talk around it.
So much of the dialogue is, like, people not coming off as a genuine villain because of their affected speaking from the mouthpieces.
Yeah, no, every time the vampires speak and they're like, how dare you?
You're bitch.
Yes. It really has, it loses all its punch. But we meet Amelin.
Yeah, Amelin. Actually, a side note, this part was originally written for a woman.
For a woman?
This part was originally written for a woman, and then obviously Pee Wee Herman got the job, so they did a few rewrites. But I found that really interesting.
Maybe that's why it sort of took this really comical turn, because Pee Wee Herman
Not known for dramatic
what's his name?
acting.
Paul Rubens, something like that.
Yeah, Paul Rubens.
Yeah, he's not really like if you're going to bring him onto a project, you're going to bring him on because he's funny, and he does he's kind of the comic relief of the whole thing.
Definitely.
Oh.
Without spoiling it, that his death, watching him circle the drain, gives me endless entertainment.
The longest death scene, he's kicking the wall.
He kind of sounds like when my eldest daughter asked me what sound a turtle makes, and I YouTubed it and accidentally showed her turtle porn. He kind of sounds like the sound a turtle makes when they're having sex.
The problem with this is I want to just pick out the key scenes, but what I really want to talk about is every insanely quotable quote.
Yeah, I've got so many as well.
So
kill him a lot.
Well, we meet Buffy's parents in her home, and they don't care about her. They're very distant. And her mum says the greatest thing ever when she leaves. She goes, "Kiss noise."
I didn't even notice that.
Did you? I've been saying it for a week. I watched this a week ago, and it's all I keep thinking about.
Kiss noise. That is good. I love how they set up her detachment as, do you know what time it is? Oh, I knew this thing was slow. We expect that Buffy is going to get scolded for being home late after killing a vampire in a graveyard, but actually...
with blood on her face.
Yeah, exactly. But her mum's just worried about the watch.
And we start... Where do we go? Oh, we're sort of... I don't know, this exposition... I feel like they spend most of the film setting up who everyone is.
Yeah. Well, I guess from this point forward, Buffy becomes less vapid. Her friends become more vapid.
Yet. So it hasn't quite happened. So we've met her parents. They get to the senior dance planning. And remember, it's going to be an environment theme. And they're all sort of struggling with it. But
don't tread on me.
Don't tread on me. You have to tread on it. It's the earth. But it's not until we have that second confrontation at Cafe Blase, I feel like this is where the kind of, connection comes in with them. In that, Buffy and, Pike notices Buffy because she slices Benny's hot dog. She wastes his dog, as he says.
She's not like other girls.
She's not. She knows how to slice a hot dog long ways down the middle.
It's an important skill.
With a butter knife. It is quite...
I love the sounds as well. She's doing it so fast, but it's literally just cut down the middle.
It sounds like she was, topiarying it, and actually it's just one slice down the middle.
Yeah, I feel like those particular sounds get reused throughout the film every time she flips.
But they have this... I think they're high again or they're drunk. I think they're drunk now. Maybe they... Yeah. Oh, do you know what? Maybe they smoked pot and then drank. Which maybe that's why they're so fucked up.
Well, they're part of the subculture, man.
Yeah.
They don't like to follow the same rules as everybody else, man.
But they have that scene where they can't... again, everyone just walks through creepy places for no reason. Are they going somewhere, or are they just walking along the edge of a cliff?
Are they trying to get murdered by a vampire?
Well, this is what happens is they're both clearly very drunk, feeling sick. I think Benny's in love with Pike.
Really?
So there's this whole thing. They're walking along, and Benny's complaining about Buffy and her friends, and Pike sort of makes a thing "Would you do them?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, I'd do them, whatever. One more beer and I do you." And I'm like, "Oh, you're fishing for this. Maybe he's drunk enough this time."
Yeah, good point. In fact, towards the end when he's like, "We could start a band," he's probably saying we could form a meaningful relationship and be together for eternity.
Becoming a vampire, you immediately start to sort of transgress societal expectations, and it wouldn't be that big a leap for Pike to fall in love with him if he was a vampire too.
I can totally see this angle. I think they've missed an opportunity here.
I think they really have. Look, Benny gets taken. Pike's passed out. Donald Sutherland saves him. Watches Benny get taken.
And then just tells Pike to go home.
Well, no, I think he puts him in his car. I don't know.
He's not very helpful,
He's
is he,
not.
really?
He's not useful at all.
And his fighting skills are less than advertised.
I mean, there is a montage coming up where Buffy's boxing his bare hands.
The training montage is a highlight.
We're so close to it. Trying to work out how I move.
Sorry,
no, it's not you.
Making it easy to follow a linear path.
No, well, I don't think we can talk about this in a linear way because it's all over the place itself.
It's a lot.
We get to see Chrissy Swanson's stunt double. Because it's just that thing where she's like, stretch, change camera angle, clearly a different person flipping around the room. She meets Merrick properly. He tells her that she's the Slayer.
He gives off major creep vibes. I feel like Giles would have handled this very differently.
I agree. I would not have gone with him to a graveyard.
I'm sorry. If anyone is listening and a creepy old man tells them that they are chosen and that you need to go to the graveyard with him, and don't go. It's a trap.
It is a trap.
You're not chosen. It's a trap.
I mean, you're chosen.
Yeah.
Not for the right reasons. But they go to the graveyard. She clearly has a knack for killing vampires. He does not. Despite being... Is he immortal?
No, he's reborn every time with the knowledge. He already has the knowledge of his life's purpose. But he'd like to be a cobbler. So he's a genuine tragedy of the film.
But he's born with his knowledge of his life's purpose, but not how to fight, which is quite frustrating. But, he sets her up, sits her on the grave so that she gets attacked by the vampire. And I guess this is... Well, is this driving the plot forward? She knows her...
Yeah, well, before this, there are strange things happening in Henry High.
They just
people are going missing.
Someone showed up dead. A neck wound that looked like, and the news reporter said, a gross hickey.
I know. I know. Yeah, so strange things are happening, and this is the scene where Buffy is confronted with a real-life actual vampire. So she knows that there is some truth to Merrick's claims that she's the chosen guy.
She is the chosen guy. And it I guess it gets us to the point of her having to make that choice. And we very quickly end up with what is my favourite scene of the whole thing in the locker room, where she's like, what are you doing here? It's a naked place. Merrick shows up because Buffy doesn't want to do her training.
And Merrick's like, what do you mean? I'm a creep. This is where I hang out.
Are you surprised I hang out in the women's locker room? But this has the best scene because he throws a knife at her and she catches it. But right before he throws the knife, he kind of twirls his beard.
I didn't notice. Was I half asleep? I didn't notice.
Again, he's a creep. It's the creepiest thing I've ever seen. He takes both of his hands and the backs of his fingers, he runs them up the side of his mustache before he throws the knife. And it's it feels like a really deliberate choice, but it makes, because he's got gloves on as well, so he doesn't know where his face is. He's kind of just slapping himself in the face as he tries to twirl his mustache, but he can't touch. He does it as I'm about to do something really cool.
Maybe this is one of the last-minute changes that he implemented that don't make any sense. Maybe this was the straw that broke Joss Whedon's back.
Quite possibly.
The weird facial hair touching before knife throwing.
If I was Joss Whedon and I watched that, I'd probably be do you know what? This isn't my vision. I want out.
To be fair, I always fondle my facial hair before I throw a knife at someone.
Well, on the occasions that I have thrown a knife, it's very important. You've got to look on fleek.
Twirl my villain moustache.
But this is kind of the point where we get to the montage, which is very exciting. I made lots of notes during the montage, but they were just like one word each. Well, sometimes two. Boxing, yelling and stakes, rope climbing, kicking, punching Merrick's hands, stunt double, kick bag, bag kicks back, kissing the boyfriend. I don't know why I've written that. Oh, actually, I do know why I've written that. Because in the montage, she's still hanging out with her friends and her boyfriend Jeffrey, who we have not talked about at all because
he's a douche.
He's a douche, but he's also just got no personality.
Yeah. He gives off like major douche vibes.
You just forget he exists. So when in that, you're sort of watching it, and there's this whole thing going on with Pike, and you're kind of following that, and then you go, oh yeah, she's got a boyfriend.
That biatch. Yeah, so that scene, it's kind of like her two identities grappling with each other. She wants to be with her friends and in the cafeteria, but then she has vampires to kill, so these are some decisions that she needs to make.
But she, like, gets into it because there's mirror punching. She, like, watches herself punching the mirror, which I assume is, like, a technique thing. There's a lot of mirror punching. She doesn't punch the mirror. They're in the alley. She's doing some bad acting and singing.
Feeling.
Yes. And something we haven't talked about, which is evident here, is the cramps thing.
How annoying are the cramps? Why does she need to get menstrual-like cramps when there's a vampire around? Does it have something to do with her fertility? Or it's a very strange inclusion in the film?
It is really odd, and it sort of stands out at earlier points because, like, when she's first meeting Merrick, but we're also overwhelmed that he's a creep, and you don't sort of connect it with, like, the vampire thing. But this idea of getting cramps from the vampires, you're just like, who thought this was a good idea? It's like her very own Spidey sense, but it's just a bit shit.
Really shit. It's kind of like Harry Potter's scar hurting, but weirdly linked to female hormones. I don't know. I don't understand it. It makes no sense. This doesn't happen to the real Buffy.
No, it doesn't. Well, this is an interesting point, though, because Sarah Michelle Gellar is the real Buffy. Sarah Michelle Gellar
is the real Buffy.
Because she can act.
And if you disagree with me, I will fight you.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that. No one's disagreeing with you on that.
I did think. So the Buffy series came out in 1997, so which point I was like maybe 7 or 8. My maths isn't great, so if anyone's like doing the calculations and I'm wrong, solve. But I thought she was incredible and I had already seen the film. But now rewatching it, because I've watched the series like multiple times. It's a hobby of mine. Sometimes I just rewatch it. But Christy Swanson, there are some real similarities in the way that they look. And I think the series treats the original film as a bit of a joke. Sometimes they allude to it. In the original ending of the film, the gym was supposed to burn down. She was supposed to burn down the gym. And they make reference to that a bunch of times. And they even do a flashback in one episode to Sarah Michelle Gellar dressed up a bit like Christy Swanson and looking like really vacuous. But yeah, it's kind of just like a big joke. Have we covered the part where Benny's floating outside the window yet?
We haven't. That was ages back too. Oh yeah. See, and this plays into my Benny loves Pike thing.
Yeah. At the bedroom window, knocking on the bedroom. Romeo, is that you? Benny?
Told you, Benny loves Pike. Yes, so after Benny gets bitten by Amelin, he's turned into a vampire. And I think, do they do it as a bit of a fake out? Like, he's at Pike's window and he's like, what are you doing, man? And we don't realise until a good sort of, minute into the scene that Benny's floating like a few floors up.
Yeah, I think this is actually one of the best scenes of the entire film. I found this to be a really cool scene. I also love that Pike is so stoned that he's like, you're floating. And like maybe he is, or maybe he's just imagining that he's floating. But yeah, I actually found this to be legitimately a little bit scary. No, it's not scary, but as close as this movie
menacing.
Comes to
like
scary.
He's at his window and he's saying, I'm hungry. He's like, I'm hungry.
Yeah,
like,
let me in, I'm hungry. I might have to reconsider my horror camp scale given this new information that Benny's in love with Pike.
So where are we? So Pike's trying to leave town. That's where we were.
His van breaks down. Maybe it never got the parts.
Yeah, maybe.
Do you know what I love as well? Like, because Pike's the subculture man. He is in a position to recognize that weird stuff is happening in LA, whereas everyone else, they're so into their own existence that they don't even notice.
Yeah.
The gross hickeys on all the corpses.
And that's why he's getting out.
Yeah.
Except that he's not, because Amelin and two extras, they show up. He gets his van going. He backs into one of them. Amelin ends up on the front of the van, like holding on and hissing.
Yeah.
He ends up turning down like this field and completely destroying his axles as he like just drives through a field.
Into a tree.
But eventually Amelin gets his... I think he punches through the roof of the van.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And then he's grabbing around.
Blindly,
yeah.
They go under a tree and Amelin gets ripped off, but his arm stays in the van.
He doesn't seem that upset about his arm.
No.
He's like, you ruined my jacket. Does the arm grow back? I mean, we find out that he's existed for like more than 100 years, several hundred years. He's never lost an arm before, or has he? Like, why isn't he more upset that he's just lost an arm?
Moving after it came off, so maybe you can just reconnect it.
Yeah, but he doesn't though, does he?
He doesn't.
He just has his sleeve pinned up.
Yeah. I mean, this is another hole that...
Look, unless I had some sort of vampiric guarantee that my arm was going to grow back, I would be a little bit upset about losing one.
Yeah, I mean, it changes things, you know. It's going to be things he can't do now.
Yeah. Like break into vans and reach around.
But it's like the opportunity is here for Pike to work out that Buffy knows about vampires too, and that she can kill them. And we have this kind of nice thing that it's the point of... Because he's such a juxtaposition to Buffy's boyfriend Jeffrey, who's such a douchebag, and calls her his thang at one point.
I know.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Early on when he's like, no, you can't borrow her, you'll get her dirty.
Yeah.
I was like, gross.
It's really gross. Like, yeah. I mean, I guess they're trying to establish this kind of douchebag, so we all hate him. But there is this very strong comparison with Pike, who immediately faints.
Yeah, and he's kind of like the damsel in distress, isn't he? Well, she...
Oh, they flipped it. What? Oh, my God.
Very subversive.
Yeah, they're like really sticking to the patriarchy.
There is something really interesting about this because the movie was released in 1992 and Carol Clover's Men, Women and Chainsaws was also released in 1992 where she talks about the final girl. And Buffy kind of does sort of put that on its head.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, I guess also because, I mean, she does hit some of the tropes of the final girl. She's virginal.
Yeah, well, is she? Because I feel like her boyfriend has sleepovers quite early on in the piece.
But he's like trying stuff on and she's kind of rebuffing his advances.
There is definitely a character arc that aligns itself with the final girl because she goes from like bubblegum blonde vacuous to, you know, someone who could potentially overcome the big villain. But I don't know. She's the one who kicks ass.
Yeah, like it's not that she's not the final girl in the sense that she's not just running screaming the whole time. And she's never quite helpless. Even when what's his name? I want to say Lothos.
Yeah, Lothos.
Yeah, even when he's like entrancing her, she doesn't seem helpless or kind of while she has moments of kind of losing focus and not being in control, she regains it. So yeah, no, it does. I think you're right. It does flip it on the head.
Maybe, I mean, they were both released in the same year, so maybe she's just a very early prototype of an empowered woman in, you know, a media form.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like she and look, potentially that's Joss Whedon's writing there, is that because you look at Buffy the series and who Buffy is, and she's this very dynamic character that has great kind of strength, but also really, really great flaws, and you know she's very multidimensional. And perhaps this kind of challenging of that final girl trope comes from Joss Whedon's writing initially, but it's kind of lost a bit in the whatever happened to this film.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point, because even the opening scene of the series, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, we realise later on that this character, this sort of helpless-looking blonde who's breaking into the school with a bad boy type character, we realise later that she is Darla, but it's sort of like, I don't think we should be doing this, we're going to get in trouble, and I think I can hear something, and in the end she's the big bad, she's the vampire that has a little snacky snack on the guy that you think they're sort of in it together, but she's got the munchies.
She does. So where the hell are we?
Oh my God, I've got no idea. Honestly,
what happened in this film?
I took some notes, but then I just feel like I've done this like verbal dump. I think my point with like the opening scenes of Buffy is that it sets it up that Joss Whedon, I think Joss Whedon does write like reasonably good female characters, and he sets it up that it's not just like business as usual helpless female. There's a little bit of depth to it. Not a lot in some
Not a lot
cases,
in this case.
but a little bit.
Yeah. No, definitely. And then probably the next big thing that happens. So Pike knows what's going on. There's kind of, there's a connection. But the next thing we sort of get to is that Merrick dies.
How lackluster.
Oh, yeah.
I just feel like Merrick's whole character is such bullshit.
Well, maybe Donald Sutherland did this. So Merrick was originally meant to commit suicide. Yeah.
He couldn't be a cobbler.
Maybe. I don't actually know why he was meant to commit suicide, but yeah, no, that was the original plan. And in this whole making this less dark, it was too dark, it needed to be more funny, it needed to be a comedy to appeal to young people. They like pulled that out, and they still had him die, but he was killed by Lothos with his own stake. And it's
the handkerchief also grossed me out in that scene.
Oh yeah, that was weird as well, because he got stabbed and he was like, picks up pulls a handkerchief out. Oh, I've been stabbed. Excuse me. It's not a meaningful enough death to explain the ensuing kind of crisis that Buffy has.
And their whole there's a trading montage, and we're supposed to understand that they're bonding and becoming closer, but really the entirety of their relationship and the way that it arcs within the film is him making a joke and her laughing at it.
Oh, yes.
You made a joke. And then we're just expected to believe that he becomes very important to her. So when his untimely handkerchief death comes along, she's deeply affected. I'm not buying it.
No.
This
is where it falls down. Like, I feel like up until this point, it's like, oh yeah, I can see this working, and this is just where it falls down entirely.
It's a mess. Do you get the feeling that like there was an original storyline and then like the changes that were made the night before?
Yeah, and like along the way, like every day someone came in with a new idea and they were like, yeah, let's do that too. And by the end of it, there's just a mess of too many cooks. Someone spoiled the broth here.
Because what the heck is the go with the music and when the music stops? Because I've seen a lot of horror movies, but I don't get why the main villain let her go. She's not ready. So she's not
what does she need to be ready for?
And what does music have to do with anything? Does he have some sort of vampire power, like musical power? I mean, I know he plays the violin.
So, we skipped over the basketball game, but Ben Affleck plays in the opera. I even wrote Ben Affleck as number 10 on the opposition side.
Ben Affleck. Batman.
And that's where Creepy Mouth Man comes back, but this time he has vampire teeth and his mouth makes more sense.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle to find a favourite quote, but I do love the part where he's like, and now I'm a god, like over his fake fangs. And then Pike's like, obviously, and now you're a coat rack.
Yeah, no, it's very good. And it is great to see that kind of, it's like he's wearing headgear. Yeah. Like if this was aged down to where they're like 12 to 14, they could all the vampires could just be kids in headgear. And now I'm a god. God, where are we up to?
I have no idea. Yeah. I feel like I've just derailed your podcast.
Oh no, it's totally fine. Where Merrick's dead. Oh, he dies, and then she goes to talk to her friends about it, and none of them care. And Hilary Swank has possibly every line's possibly the best line, but they have this big confrontation, and then they find out Kathy dies. Does that happen then? Remember Cassandra. So she has a big fight with her friends. Hilary Swank says, "Get out of my facial."
Yes.
Which is just beautiful.
Yeah. Cinematic genius.
If you had watched that and then said she goes on to be one of the great actors and does these performances that just blow you away, I don't think anyone would believe you.
I kind of love her performance in this movie though, because I feel like I feel like Hilary Swank and David Arquette save this film.
They do.
Because they give reasonable performances. And I especially love Hilary Swank in the opening basketball cheerleading scene where she's in the bleachers and someone comes to sit beside her, and the look that she gives him is like just so much disdain. I just don't know how any person could possibly inject that much disgust into a facial expression.
She finds a way.
Also, I really particularly enjoy when she gets knocked unconscious and her eyes go crossed.
Yes. She starts screaming because Buffy comes back and the principal slams her head into the wall.
Yeah, so I don't know. Oh. I mean, it's not going to win her another Oscar, but I didn't hate it.
But it does take us to Buffy's sulky walk because she decides she wants to get back to who she really was before.
She wants to trade in those steaks for the pom-poms.
She really does. And she walks down that street with her thumbs in her pocket for the entire
I'm glad she doesn't sing again.
She doesn't sing again, luckily. But, like, her thumbs are just I'm demonstrating this to you on video, but no one else can see this. But they're just, like, wedged into her pocket. And it makes her look like she's really uncomfortable. I feel like, did someone tell you to do that?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like a boo-hoo, I'm sad walk. Maybe a few kicks of clods of dirt on the ground as she walks along. She's just not a very good actress.
I don't know. It's a weird choice.
Those shorts are a weird choice.
They are.
Like, I know it was the 90s, but a couple of times I was like, really?
They are. They look amazing from behind, but on the front. When she turns around, you're like, oh no, they're great pants. And then she turns back and you're like, why are they baggy in the front?
Yes.
How are they tight in the back and baggy in the front?
Why does she need like room for additional pubic bone? There's so much space like around that area.
God, they were a weird choice. But it does give us the moment for Benny in the photo booth to overhear them.
Yes, like another key plot point that gets kindly spoon-fed to us. Because now they know her identity.
But they already knew her identity because did they in the editing suite confuse the scenes and this was meant to happen before the basketball game? I
feel like Pike and Benny were in the editing suite as actual people, drunk and high, just being like, oh no, that'll work.
It doesn't make sense. It's like that everyone already knows, and he's like, oh, we've just found out that Buffy is the Slayer, and
yeah. So Lothos knows that she's Buffy. Her childhood friend that drank too much blueberry schnapps and whatever the word they use for vomit all over her house at her birthday party. He knows who she is. Maybe he's a really bad communicator.
Yeah, he needs a comms manager to help get the message out there. Hey everyone, by the way, we found the next Slayer. Keep an eye out.
Being located. Call off the search.
As you know, I have to kill her, so please don't.
Yeah. Another weird segue, but can we also talk about how Pike and Spike are the same character, but one of them is the love interest and one of them is a villain?
Yes. Well, and one of them's human and one of them's a vampire. Maybe Pike got turned. No, that doesn't make sense. We know Spike's history.
Benny got Pike. They had a very happy relationship until he met Drusilla. When I say got, I mean bit and turned into a vampire.
He got him, yeah.
He got him.
There are, like, it's that same kind of... So this is an interesting thing about the series. We're going to talk about the series more than we talk about this film. But the series didn't have... Like, the series ended up with a bit of a love interest with the bad boy. But for a long time, Buffy always went for the kind of haunted but very sort of empathic and kind guy. And it's only like later in the series when after, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen the Buffy series, I should say, but only after she dies and gets brought back to life that she really goes for the bad boy.
Yeah. One of the things I really like about Buffy as the series is she has very few love interests over the course of 7 seasons. Like, Angel is the big love, sort of the one that never gets resolved. But beyond that, there's only like...
Well, there's the army guy who...
there's Riley. There's a random guy at college named Parker. And then there's Spike.
Yeah.
I think in the first season she might go on a date with a guy.
She does. Remember in the first season, I think this is the first season, she's seeing someone and he, like, sees, like, the vampire shit go down and then he, like, really wants to get into it. He's like, I want to fight vampires too. Yeah. Yeah, he
likes, like, oh my God, this is embarrassing, but I can't remember her name. Famous author Emily Bronte.
Oh, right.
Who's quite dark. And then, he's attracted to, like, the darkness and she's worried he's going to get hurt. But it's not really like it. It's like how each season has an overarching big bad, but often within episodes there'll be, like, a resolution of, a small ticket bad guy. Yeah. It's like there's 2 main romances. And then there's maybe a sprinkling of other ones, but it's just not an important part of her.
No, it's not. And it's funny because it becomes quite important for a lot of the other characters, but Buffy almost sort of focuses on where her purpose is.
Yeah, she ain't got no time for no man.
No. Well, and also, the first guy she slept with, it turned him immediately evil and he murdered lots of people.
Yeah, and then got sent to a hell dimension for possibly hundreds of years because time moves differently.
Yeah, which, like, if that happened to me, I'd need a lot of therapy. Because she had to kill him as well.
She did, stabbed him straight in the heart. It was very traumatic.
God, that's an intense episode.
There are so many intense episodes.
That series made me cry a lot.
Me too. So good.
It's so good.
So good.
But that's the thing. Good, like, clearly Joss Whedon's storytelling was not tampered with, but also really great performances, particularly from Sarah Michelle Gellar and Anthony Head, who's, like, so good as well. Like, there are some hard-hitting actors in that. And I know that there's, like, Donald Sutherland in this, but he just...
He should have played Lothos.
That would have made more sense.
Yeah, he should have played Lothos because he is a villain.
Yeah, he's a creep and it was weird and I'm never... Like,
and I was happy when he died with his handkerchief.
Well, I didn't feel anything when he died.
Yeah, true.
God, we don't hate you, Donald Sutherland, but seriously, what?
Sorry, Donald, if you're listening. I thought you were fantastic as Snow.
In the Hunger Games. We got handkerchief acting. It made more sense there.
Because you're a creep.
God, what are we up to? So she had a oh my God, we're near the end. The film's nearly over.
No.
So they have the dance, and she gets there, and Jeffrey and the friend.
Jessica? Wait, what's her
No,
name?
it's not a name. The one with
the perm.
The one with the perm. It's Jennifer.
Jennifer. What did I say?
I've already forgotten.
It doesn't matter.
Anyway, Jeffrey and Jennifer are hooking up, and he broke up with her machine.
To be fair, I feel like we're all quite disgusted with that. We're like, what, you broke up with her machine, but she's been like seeing Pike on the sly and hasn't broken up with his machine.
Yeah,
bit of a
true.
double standard there.
Well, I mean, maybe she wants something more open.
Maybe.
Slaying's a tough gig. Like, you've got to just sort yourself out where you can.
You could die any day, so you just jump on that Pike.
Yeah. I feel like that's got quite a few meanings.
Yeah, I sort of was like, ooh.
Oh no. But yeah, she's very sad at the dance. Pike arrives. Something we haven't talked about is he wears like a tunic shirt.
Yeah.
Through the whole thing. And for the dance, he just puts a leather jacket over it.
Yeah. Well, it's because he's a member of the subculture.
Yes, I know. He's different. He's got a...
He's different. He has his own look.
But he does brighten Buffy's day, dances with her. Clearly, she's very happy. He likes her. She likes him.
They pash, very X-rated.
Oh, yeah. But it's also... Yeah, it's not a nice pash.
It's like they just... The shot for the pash just goes on, and you're like, they're going to come up the air, right? This can't be the way Buffy dies. Suffocation.
Suffocating on Pike's mouth. Oh, that's really gross. I do want to note, his jacket was clearly made for her, and he's just wearing it to hand it over to her because it has shoulder pads.
I know, they should have just put him in a yellow leather jacket and be done with it.
He's wearing it. I'm like, your shoulders are next to your ears. And when she puts it on, you're like, okay, now that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the vampires break through the glass.
They do.
They take a dance, and it's because Benny knew they'd be at the dance.
Look, I don't know.
Maybe that's why he was excited.
Also, why was he in a photo booth?
Yeah, well, then the photos come out and there's no picture.
Yeah.
And there was creepy music over that. We were meant to be surprised?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've just looked at my notes and I just have in all caps, awkward dance kiss.
Yeah, that's exactly what it... Awkward, elongated dance kiss.
Yeah. But the vampires... So where are we? The vampires break in. Everyone's screaming. Buffy goes out. Oh, Pike brought his prepared steaks that she puts in a little pull-string white purse thing.
Yes, and she rips her dress. This is an important...
Yes. Makes it shorter so that so her stunt double can do all these flips while the vampires all just stand in a really big circle and wait for her to come and attack.
And gyrate.
Merrick said 10 vampires are harder to beat than one. But they weren't. They all just stood in a circle and waited their turn.
Yeah, and just waited in a conga line while she flipped instead of ran through them.
She really liked to do gymnastics.
It makes no sense. It's so annoying, and it makes no sense because you can't tell me that those flips are quicker or use less energy than just running from point A to point B. Why is she flipping?
Cool.
Why is she flipping?
Oh, yeah. If that was happening in real life and vampires were real, she'd be dead.
Do you know that's why the vampires don't attack her? Because they're just going, what the fuck is she doing? Why is she flipping?
But she goes out and fights them, but then abandons everyone in the school for the vampires just to come in.
Yeah.
Which... I thought the whole reason for going out there was to kill them all so that none of them got in.
Because they wanted her. They didn't want to go into the gym. They were send her out. But Hilary Swank sent them invitations because they're seniors. So
right. I was very confused with that. But she runs into Amelin
Mm-hmm.
They have a fight. We get the best death scene of this entire thing.
Honestly, one of the greatest quotes is, "Aren't there times when you just feel less than fresh?"
I did. Yeah, no, that was really good. This is the thing, and like getting Paul Rubens in, who is a comic actor, and I don't know if they added these lines in for him, but it just became a comedy.
It's just a big old joke.
It really is, and she stabs him. Well, no, he's waiting for Lothos to help him, and Lothos is like, yeah, and she stabs him, and then he then spends the next I timed it.
I love it when he kicks the wall. He's like,
He's like,
I mean, what was he expecting from a man who was like, oh, hey, I just lost my arm. I'm so upset about my leather jacket. Like, were we expecting him to be upset about being killed? Because I just feel like he's just a disaffected kind of guy.
He just wanted to, chew the scenery and stretch
Such a
that
weird
scene out as
scene.
long as he could. But it's one of the things that makes it enjoyable. As silly as it is, it's like, if they wanted this whole movie to be like that, I reckon it could have worked.
Yeah.
But it was still caught somewhere in the middle because they were probably just changing it on the fly. They were going, oh, do you know what we should do here? Let's have her flip 500 times. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, totally agree. Changing it on the fly.
So if the whole thing was just every vampire's death scene being like them popping back up into the camera and continuing to die a bit more slowly, yeah, that could work.
More turtle porn.
More turtle porn. God. And then she sort of has this weird interaction with Lothos.
With the music.
Yes.
I don't get it. Like, is the music a tool of hypnosis that he uses? Because that's largely unexplored in the film. We know that he plays violin. We know that his presence hypnotizes her in some way. We know that Merrick's, gurgling handkerchief-covered last sentences is something about when the music stops. But none of it makes sense.
I'm so confused. I've seen this so many times, and I think I just watched it unquestioningly. And now that I'm watching it for the purpose of talking about it, I'm just like, none of this makes any fucking sense.
Plot holes. Yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird because they take the time to spoon feed the audience so much stuff that would have been obvious anyway.
And they leave out the
they fail to unpack this very key element of, the conclusion.
Well, exciting things happen. She pulls out a cross. It lights on fire. She sprays it with her hairspray. And
fashion sense.
It does nothing, though. Fire's in his face and he just kind of shakes it off like a shampoo commercial.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, yeah. Maybe he's born with it. That's not even a shampoo, is it?
Maybelline. No, it works.
It works.
It does make him angry because he does go on to call her a bitch again.
Yeah, he does. Those terrible teeth. But then she runs back to the dance?
Yeah, she goes back to the gym. She hasn't killed him.
No, but they've, I think Pike has killed all the vampires. And the principal's giving them all detention slips.
Detention. That's his coping mechanism.
And Buffy comes back in, Hilary Swank freaks out. We get fabulous acting as her eyes cross when she's...
Good cross-eye fainting.
Head into the wall, cross-eyed, fall down. Excellent. And Lothos bursts through... I don't even know where he bursts through. And is it sunlight outside?
I don't know. But is he floating? I feel like he flies at this point.
Oh, does he? I don't remember. I
literally watched this last night. Yeah. I feel...
It's because it makes no sense, so my brain can't keep it in.
Yeah, it just deadened my brain.
But she has this fight with him. She does lots of flipping. Oh yeah, he pulls out a sword. God, why do you have a sword?
I need to rewatch the ending because all I remember is he calls her a bitch and he's really angry that he no longer has power over her from some source that we're not quite clear on, and then she stakes him.
She does, but she stakes him, and then she kicks it.
She roundhouse kicks the stake in.
And then he dies and covers his face with his...
Well, he didn't have a handkerchief, Damien. What was he supposed to do?
Well, I know, like, you must have a handkerchief in case you die because it's the only way you can do your death scene.
I feel like that's like something I'll add to clean underwear in case I get hit by a bus, and a handkerchief in case I get staked by, I don't know, a musical vampire.
Musical vampire, God. God, what does he do next? So he dies. Oh, and then we have the ending.
Do they dance?
They do. Pike's like, let's have this dance, and everyone else is leaving. There's dead vampires everywhere.
Why can't they go poof like they do in the series, and then it's like no
I don't think they had the budget, and perhaps CGI technology wasn't quite there yet.
Mm-hmm. I see. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
No, it's all good. We've made it to the end of the film.
It's a shit film.
I forgot. I thought it was better than it was. Like, my memory of this film was so much better than what I just watched.
Even with my nostalgic, like, desire to enjoy it, I was struck by how shit this film is. I was like, apart from having a giggle out loud at the great quotes, there's not really... I mean, they could just do an audio reel of quotes and it would entertain me as much as this film did.
Yeah, someone could just do a supercut of all the great quotes and then that'd be everything we need out of the film. Before we classify this film on the Camp Scary scale, do you have a campus line or moment of the film?
I feel like the campus line has to be Emmeline's death. The campus moment has to be Emmeline's death. Yeah. Because it's just so ostentatious.
It is, and it's that thing. It's the moment where Paul Rubens knows what kind of movie he's in, and no one else seems to know, and so he makes the most of it, and it is so funny.
It's absurd.
It's ridiculous. It's so stupid.
But the whole movie is absurd in its crapness, but his performance is absurd in a way that makes it really funny.
Where does this film land on the Camp Scary scale? Where from Divine Camp to Pure Terror would you put it?
I am awarding this film on the scale a numero 2, which is predominantly camp and only incidentally scary.
I feel like that's fair. I feel like it had a lot of potential for some real scares, but it just never really delivered on them.
Much like Jeffrey's future career, probably, once his athletic abilities dried up.
Yeah, a lot of potential, no delivery.
Never really delivered. Yeah.
Thank you, Emma, for being my guest for my first episode of Camp Scary and Squee. You can follow Camp Scary and Squee on Instagram and Twitter at Camp Scary Pod. If you have questions or suggestions, you can email campscarysquee@gmail.com. And make sure you rate and review Camp Scary and Squee so that other horror fans can find us. Thank you for joining us, and remember, don't scream.
They'll hear you.